Today we have a subject that is talked about a lot, but not always understood in a very practical way. That was what you call karma, because for many years I was the one who got in front of Swamiji and started playing with the microphone, and so the spiritual eye, I was very interested to find some of the different ways that people call the spiritual eye, some of which I hadn't really heard before. The single eye, medulla eye, the eye of God, dove descending from heaven, star of the east, spiritual telescope, Christ eye, Christ center, Kutusta eye, Shiva eye, third eye of the Hindu gods, pineal eye, heavenly eye, the third eye, Kutastha Chaitanya, Ajna chakra, spiritual eye. I'm sure there's more. I found those entertaining, some of them. But the word eye is used, normally in vision. And when we usually talk about the spiritual eye, we're talking about something that you see. And we have the sample of it on the altar here. The spiritual eye is the golden ring with the blue field in the middle and the five-pointed star in the center. But the word eye is used for some other things too. Eye of the needle. You know, many stories you hear, God's passing elephants and camels through the eye of a needle. I still haven't quite figured out why God is doing that. But nevertheless, it seems to be, an entertaining thing. The eye of the storm. Yeah? But interesting, the eye of the storm is that calm center in the midst of the storm. I think there's something to be learned from that. And the one that I like the most is the private eye. The private eye investigates. The private eye is the one who goes around quietly looking into things. And this is what I want to do today. Today we're going to do the private eye of the spiritual eye. We're going to look inside and see what we can find. I want to start the investigation with a story that Dr. Lewis, Yoganandaji's first disciple in America, that he told about his very first meeting with Yogananda. So Dr. Lewis was a dentist, and he was from Boston, and he was kind of, straight-laced, and conservative. And he was a little intellectual, and he had been studying metaphysics for some time. So he had some knowledge on the subject, and he had actually seen Yogananda before he met him. He saw him walking across a plaza, and he saw this man. He didn't know who he was in orange with a big turban, and he thought, that's odd. So that was his first impression of Yogananda, was, he's a little strange looking. But his wife, and he was friends with a woman who later became Sister Yogamata. And she had come into contact with Yogananda and spoke to Dr. Lewis and said, you should really meet this man, this Swami from India. And he was somewhat resistant, but eventually he was convinced to go. And so he called Yogananda, made an appointment for Christmas Eve. And on Christmas Eve, he went to where Yogananda was staying. And in his mind, he was holding himself back a little bit. He didn't want to be tricked in any way. He didn't want to be, told a story that wasn't true, and then he would innocently believe it, and then it would be false. So he was skeptical. But he was interested in the subject. So he went, he sat with Yogananda. He said, Yogananda asked him if he had any questions. And he said, "Sir, I do, yes. I've read in the Bible, if thine eye be single, thy body shall be filled with light. And I've found no explanation for this. Nobody's ever been able to tell me what that means, and more importantly, if that means you can see something somewhere, how can I see it? What is it that you can see?" So he said, "Sir, do you know anything about this?" And he said, "Well, maybe." So they talked a little bit more, and then Dr. Lewis said, "Well, can you show me this spiritual eye?" And Yoganandaji sat him down and said, "Okay." They sat down on a tiger skin, one on each end. And they sat on the floor, and Dr. Lewis had never sat cross-legged on the floor before. But he sat down, and they were just like knee to knee. And then Master asked him, he said, "I give you my unconditional love. Will you give me yours?" And Dr. Lewis thought for a moment, and he said he didn't really fully grasp what has been asked, but he agreed to the spirit of it. He said, "Yes." And so then Yogananda said, "I take charge of your life." And then he leaned forward, and they pressed their foreheads together. And as they did so, Dr. Lewis began to see inwardly the spiritual eye. And then they separated. And from that experience, Dr. Lewis was changed. He was changed from a regular, what we call worldly person, a person where life is their guru, a person where you just wander around through life and you learn lessons either because you're paying attention or because you're forced into it. The law of karma places obstacles in front of you and you have to deal with them. But when Yogananda said, "I take charge of your life," he was saying that when you attune yourself to the Guru, when you become in harmony with the Guru's efforts on your behalf, then the whole game changes. The whole situation that we're in changes. Because we're no longer just wandering around on our own. We have a guide. We have someone who is on our side supporting our efforts. Now, this is a very important factor when we want to talk about the spiritual eye. Because if you just, you come onto the spiritual life and you go, "Wow, I just can't wait to have these fantastic experiences." And we think, because we come from the worldly point of view, we think that inner visions and lights and sounds are it. Wow, this is the show, lights and the marching band and all this. But that is the worldly mind. Remember the storm. The eye of the storm is calm. The person who's in restlessness doesn't know what calmness is and isn't capable of entering into it. And if they touch it, it's either scary or it's boring. Oh, how boring, we're just sitting here. I remember years ago, two of the other monks and I were up in the state of Oregon doing something together, and we were meditating, and a local fellow came and meditated with us. And we sat down, we had it was probably a 2-hour meditation. About halfway through the meditation, the guy just got up and left. And then, it was nighttime. He just disappeared and didn't come back. And the next day we found out he walked all the way home, and he said, "You guys were just sitting in that little room with your eyes shut, and it scared me. It freaked me out. I had to get out of there." Because his mind was restless. If we want to see the spiritual eye, if we want to attune ourselves to this center, which has much more than just vision, we have to become calm. And the most powerful way to become calm is to attune yourself to the Guru. And then, of course, to practice the techniques that the Guru teaches in order to become more and more inwardly connected. So the whole group of spiritual practices that we follow are designed specifically to interiorize the mind, to awaken the inner flow of energy up the spine to the spiritual eye. But it's not like calisthenics. It's not for bulging the muscles and looking in the mirror and you know, being body conscious. We need to transcend that form of perception that we're used to. We're trying to investigate a higher consciousness, a super consciousness. Not just the conscious mind that we're used to, this super conscious mind. This superconscious mind is not just vision. In fact, most importantly, what we have to do is look at the spiritual eye as a focal point, a system of perception. So interesting. Yoganandaji said that when he was cooking, if he wasn't sure if the spicing was just right, he would hold the food up to his spiritual eye. And he could taste it with his spiritual eye. And so he never had to eat the food in order to determine that this is what it should taste like. We're used to thinking of the spiritual eye as just a light. Okay, we look at the light, but there's so much more to this center of awareness. Yoganandaji said that the spiritual eye is the seat of spiritual awareness. Well, if this is the seat, the legs are the heart. We stand on our hearts. If we want to speak truth in life, any kind of truth, it must be based in love. Truth is based in love, in openness, in expansion, in caring. All of the superconscious qualities that we talk about in the spiritual life. So, if we wanted to see the spiritual eye, we can't just do pranayama and create energy flow and try to see light. Or do the mudras and press so hard that we get a physiological reaction. What we need to do is open our hearts in attunement to the Guru. Practice the techniques and allow the energy, which is natural flow. In America, there's a well-known dam called the Hoover Dam. And the Hoover Dam is one of the biggest dams in the world. It's really just unbelievably large. And at the bottom, they have the spillway. And this channels through which the water comes through, and it comes by the generators, and it makes electricity and all that. But when you see this water flowing out, it's unbelievable how much power and volume there is. This is what's happening here when we begin to awaken our energy, our inner connectedness. The natural way for the water to flow when we undam it. See, what we're used to doing is sending all of our energy out through the senses. We need to draw it back into the spine, up the spine, and to the point between the eyebrows. So when we talk about living centered, living in the spine, we're saying every experience in life goes in and up to this point. But it isn't just that which we see. Most importantly, it's that which we feel. And the greatest experience that's connected to the spiritual eye really is joy. Not just the light. You don't want to just see light. That's a light show. You want to feel the light. You want to feel the qualities that are associated with that expansiveness. When we talk about the light, we're talking about not just seeing a interesting tunnel with a gold ring and a blue field and a white star. We're talking about connecting to the light of the universe, the light of the creation. That which is brought into manifestation from God, who is also beyond the creation. This light simultaneously is all of the 8 manifestations that we talk about. But most importantly, it's in order to have these experiences, it's our harmonizing with the natural flow of energy as it flows up the spine to this point, guided by the Guru. Just as Dr. Lewis was guided in that moment, we each can be guided by the Guru in our meditations. Now, it's very modern of us to try to accomplish this task. We don't want to wait for the Guru to decide when we should be given this experience. We want to break through. So what we do is we sit down and we meditate really hard, and we really try to make it happen. We push, and we push, and we push. Well, that isn't all bad, but that pushing is the old view of what we're trying to accomplish. That is the view that we grew up with, thinking that it's an outward question of strength. We have to be strong and push through. This is not correct. What we need to do is inwardly focus in harmony with. We have to surrender to the guidance of the Guru. When Yoganandaji told Dr. Lewis, "I will take charge of your life," that included when you would see something, what you would see, when you would feel something, what you would feel. We should experience calmness, peacefulness, a greater harmony in our lives. Everybody should feel that to some degree if you've been meditating regularly. And this probably is the most important thing as we develop our meditation practice, is that it's almost more important what you feel when you get up rather than what you feel when you're meditating. Do you feel more inwardly connected, calmer? Does your life feel more synchronistic? Everything is working better. You're more aware of what you're doing. You're living more consciously. You have a more positive attitude. These things are much more important than when you see and what you see in terms of these inner experiences. We usually talk about the spiritual eye in terms of seeing the spiritual eye. But what I want to do is emphasize this idea that what you're trying to do is feel the spiritual eye. You're trying to feel this flow of energy as it's focused up the spine and through. And what you want to do in your meditation practice is to take advantage of the skills that we learn in the techniques that we practice. Many people don't realize how essentially important the energization exercises are for higher meditation practice. The idea that you can consciously focus, be aware of energy, and direct it in a specific direction, and focus it. So it's easy because we're used to working in our bodies to say, okay, I'm going to tense my fist. On, off, on, off. Low, medium, high, medium, low, relax. What we want to do as we practice our meditation is occasionally what you want to do is visualize turning the energy on up the spine and focusing it at the spiritual eye. On, off, on. It's like directing a floodlight. You direct it. You point it specifically in the direction. And when we're doing energization, we're using the will to flow energy to a muscle. What we want to do is use the will to flow energy to the spiritual eye. And Yoganandaji suggested that if you want to feel joy, affirm joy. So practice taking peace or love or joy, calmness, and connect yourself to those qualities of consciousness, and then focus them at the spiritual eye. And like a beacon, shine it through that point. And one of the things that we do when focusing on the spiritual eye is that we turn the eyeballs slightly in and up, only slightly, and mainly up to this point. Sri Yukteswarji said, you don't have to become cross-eyed. You don't. I see oftentimes people are trying to break through into the spiritual eye by creating tension here. And then you see them looking up and they're fluttering their eyes. This is the breakthrough consciousness. It's not necessary. As your level of calmness deepens, and you begin to actually feel energy flowing up the spine in the Sushumna, you're going to begin to feel a little bit of this like a beam of your thought focus. And when you feel that upward energy, I remember years ago, I met a fellow from another spiritual path, and he was talking about their meditation practices. And he said that they emphasize relaxation. And I was, a young American, get the job done guy, and I was saying, well, yeah, relaxation is good, but you gotta concentrate, you gotta work on it, you really gotta make it happen. And so I brought this conversation to Swamiji, and he said, no, this other guy's right. He says, you have to relax. Kriyanandaji wrote in the New Path about this time when he was pushing so hard, he was pushing to break through, and when he didn't break through, he became disappointed, and then he had trouble meditating. We have to recognize that when we harmonize with the Guru, what we have to do is we have to give it effort, but it's the effort to consciously focus, relax. Consciously focus, relax. Let this energy flow naturally. It will. Trust it. The Guru, that's his job. He's got to. So, when you practice looking into the spiritual eye, you can, the babies, how young babies, they turn their eyes up. And it's funny, it's a completely natural thing to do. But when we get older, it becomes quite unnatural because we become so used to not doing it. And then we think it's unnatural, and then we make this big effort to turn the eyes up. What we have to do is experiment with relaxing the eyes up and visualize a flow of energy drawing them up. Experiment with that. Rather than trying to force them, allow them to be drawn up. And if you experiment with rolling your eyes up slightly, do it. When we do the yoga postures, we talk about it. Do it just to the point of discomfort. Just to that point, maybe slightly beyond to expand slightly, but never to when it hurts. And when you try to turn your eyes up, if you're doing it too hard, it's really uncomfortable. You don't need to do that. What you need to do is just bring it to the point where it's sort of at the edge of what you can do comfortably, and then allow yourself to relax up into it in this upward flow. This is, I'm talking about this, and we always talk about these things like, okay, within a week, a month, or a year, you should be doing this. And it's true that you could be doing it, but, Kriyanandaji says something that I found absolutely fascinating. He said, late in life, he said he had never seen the spiritual eye. He said the only vision he ever had was of a big green face. He didn't have any idea what that meant. We have a preconception about what our spiritual journey should look like. Yes, this is a universal experience, but he may have been merged into the spiritual eye many times in the past, probably was. As we go through the journey of this incarnation, It's like going on a ride that you don't know what is around the next bend. And we have preconceptions. Okay, well, I should see the spiritual eye within this amount of time. I should experience samadhi. I should hear the sounds in the spine when I chant Om. But the truth is that each of us, going through this universal journey up the spine and out into the spiritual eye, we will have our own unique perception of that journey. And we need to harmonize with it and humbleize ourselves. Be willing to let it be what it is. We don't, Kriyanandaji said, he said, when I sit to meditate, I never expect anything. So absolutely no expectations. When you, well, it's a funny thing. I was thinking, if you go home to see mom, you sort of expect her to feed you. You know? But when we come to God, we should come with not with expectations, but with offerings. We expect the opportunity to give our love. Another aspect of this is expansion. We usually think of the spiritual eye as this kind of this little point here. I mean, you know, it's just right there. It's only this big. How big is the eye of a needle? You could pass elephants and camels through it. This spiritual eye is the whole universe. So Yoganandaji recommended before you meditate, feel expansion. When we do yoga postures, which is preparation for meditation, we do deep relaxation in which we expand our consciousness. We need to get used to this idea that we are not only this big, that we are infinite. Infinite outward and infinite inward. It's huge. It has no limit. So when you close your eyes, don't just be in the darkness of the eyes closed. Let them allow you to, I don't know if you've ever been to a planetarium. You go to a planetarium and it becomes dark. And then suddenly you see solar systems. You see all of space. When you close your eyes, let your spirit flow out and begin to identify with infinity. Begin up, down, left, right, front, behind, all directions. And begin to realize that you are infinity, not the body. And with that, invite the Guru to be with you. Draw that you're, come to, when you come home to mom, come home to the Guru. Hug the Guru, visualize the Guru. Be with the Guru. And then in that, ask the Guru to guide your practice. Have no expectation. It's good to know what you might see. So if you're in school and you go to the zoo, usually you'll study the animals before you go. The giraffe and the elephant and the hippopotamus and the tiger. So then when you go to the zoo, you go, oh, that's tiger. Oh, that's giraffe. So we study these things. We study the metaphysics, the science, the inner science. But we don't want to be hung up on thinking about it too much. We want it to naturally evolve. And in the natural course of events, whether it be this year, next year, or in 20 years, there will become that tipping point where many of the things that we talk about in your own experience will go from theory to experience. But each in their own flow, each in their own time, each in their own way. We have to be patient. God's been patient with us. We've been playing in the creation for a long time. And now we're saying, I want to come home. I want to come home. You're like the college student who goes off to on the summer vacation after you graduate. In America, you go off to Europe. You go off to some foreign country, and you're having a grand old time. But at some point, you call home and say, I want to come home. I want to come home. The spiritual eye is the doorway to home. And all of our life's energy, We need to detach ourselves from all of the attachments, both in terms of our preconceptions about how our outward life should look and how our inward life should look. And just give that free will offering. Give that spontaneous, heartfelt expression of your soul. Each time you meditate, each time you have an experience in life that you don't like, that's uncomfortable, thank God. Say, Lord, thank you for this unpleasantness. I know that you're giving me this as a gift. And then, of course, you have to figure out, like the private eye, now, what is the meaning of this particular gift? But some of the gifts in life we don't understand. But that doesn't mean we can't receive them in the right spirit. To receive all of life in the right spirit is to bring it in with an open heart, an accepting heart, and give it to God. So be practical in your practices. Do the techniques. You know, I was saying energization is important. Hong Sa. If we can't concentrate, we can't get into this inner focus. And, you know, Hong Sa, Om technique, and of course Kriya. And as you practice Kriya over time, you will feel this energy flow more and more. And then, when you get to the point where you're practicing the higher Kriyas, again, you'll realize how important energization is. Because, again, this basic principle of directing energy with the mind. And then you begin to feel like you have a little bit of traction. In the beginning, when you sit to meditate, it's like the wheels are spinning. I'm trying, but the wheels are spinning. I'm not moving forward. Or it appears that way. Sometimes you feel like you're sliding backwards. But as you deepen your practice, you will find yourself getting traction. I look back, you know, it's easy to look back, and it doesn't matter how long you've been on the path. You can look back and say, well, I could have done better. But if you've done anything, you'll see that you've done something. And any something on the spiritual path is good. So when you look at your life, you say, wow. I was talking to some of the people who were asking about taking Kriya before this last Kriya. And they would say, well, I've, only meditated this much. And it was substantially less than we would like to see. But what I said is, oh, wow, you look what you've done. You meditated 30 minutes every day. That's fabulous. How many people on the planet are doing that? Not that many. Very few. Don't think about what you haven't seen. Don't think about what you haven't heard. Think about how your life has improved. Think about how, what you have felt. And I guarantee you that's why this is a science. You will feel more. You will see more. You might not see the spiritual eye, but you will see other stuff. Most importantly, you will see the hand of God in your life and in your heart. You will see that God and Guru are with you in every single moment of your life. The delusion, the illusion that we are alone is just that. It's false. And when you have committed your heart to the Guru has signed up to take care of you. And we have a big family. We have a big family all around the world. And we each one of us could say, well, my goodness, if God can help me, God can help anybody. But we've seen this light grow in so many people over the years. Each and every one of us is given this incredible opportunity to experience on deeper and deeper levels. If we want to enter into the spiritual eye, we have to dedicate ourselves without attachment to what exactly it's going to look like. Yoganandaji did not tell Dr. Lewis what he was going to see. He gave him the experience, and then Dr. Lewis described it. And it was this universal experience. He wasn't deluded into experiencing it. And over the years, of course, Dr. Lewis trusted more and more the truth of the Master's presence in his life. Each and every one of us as equally a child of the Master. The only thing that can ever make us less equal is when we turn away. When we look the other direction, when we don't receive that grace. We will see what we need to see when we allow ourselves to see it through our interest. We have to say, Lord, I'm really interested, and I'm going to offer this time to you. And then do the practices. Give your heart to God. Draw on the grace of the Master. Just be with the Guru. Just sit down and go, okay, let's just sit together and enjoy each other's company. And then, just the way Yoganandaji could taste food with his spiritual eye, begin to perceive all of life through the spiritual eye. Through the spiritual eye, let it come in and simultaneously offer it up. And what happens is that instead of perceiving the spiritual eye here only, it's all one. See, in the beginning when you get in a car, there's the front and there's the back. And then there's the middle that you sit in the seats. But in reality, a car is one totality. This mechanism that we live through, the physical body, the astral body, and the causal body, is one integrated whole. When we attune ourselves to spirit inwardly, the whole spine, the spiritual eye, everything is one totality. But as a practical matter, you might think of it, in the beginning at least, from the heart to the spiritual eye. Take everything in, take everything up and back. Simultaneously. Perceive it as coming from God, give it back to God. And in this inner relationship, you will see what God wants you to see. You will feel what God wants you to feel. You will understand what God wants you to understand. All we need to do is allow it to happen through our attunement to the Guru. Namaskar.